Today's interview is all about buying great domain names at value pricing so you can resell them for a profit. We're going to learn some great tactics and about a brand new platform that's turning auctions upside down. Stay tuned. I have 3 short sponsor messages before we get into today's show. First, if you're a domain name investor, you have unique intellectual property needs, and you need an IP attorney that understands them, that follows the industry, and can help you navigate UDRP, copyright, and trademark laws. David Westlow of Wiley Ryan is the lawyer to call for internet legal issues. Second, if you have a great domain name and nothing to show when people visit, you're missing out on potential advertising revenue, leads, and partnership opportunities. NicheWebsites.com can build your site quickly with a price option to suit any need. But as their tagline says, they don't just build websites, they build businesses. Finally, if you're buying or selling a domain name or a portfolio and you want an estimate of its value, Estimate.com is the place to go. Just like you'd visit Zillow.com to get an estimate of a house value, Estimate.com provides key information about the most important statistics so you can make an informed decision based on data. All 3 sponsors have a clickable banner in the upper right-hand corner of DomainSherpa.com. Here's your program. Hey everyone, my name is Michael Seiger and I'm the publisher of DomainSherpa.com, the website where you come to learn how to become a successful domain name investor and entrepreneur directly from the experts. Today's guest is a repeat domain Sherpa. He's helped us learn about how to value generic domain names, and we've named an equation after him. Go to any search engine and type in the Rosener equation, and you'll see the formula today's guest shared with the world. But today we're going to go a bit deeper. We've had some great Sherpas on here who talked about many of the different aspects of domain name buying and selling, but none who have talked about how to find great domain names for purchase. So that's what today's show is going to focus on. Returning back to the show to help us understand this topic is Andrew Rosener, CEO of MediaOptions. Drew, welcome back to the show.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Happy to be here again.
So I mentioned to you yesterday via Skype chat that I had your office mate on my show yesterday. He's in Holland right now, but Frans van Hoele, if I nailed his name, took an hour and helped us understand how to make money from lead generation in the insurance industry. I asked him, what's it like to share an office with Andrew Rosener? And you know what he said?
Loud.
He said he's a loud talker and he curses way too much.
Man, I used to be a fishmonger. You can't blame me. I've got a dirty mouth.
All right, he was a great guy. So, okay, let me first ask you about a story I just read on Mike Birkin's website, thedomains.com. I think it was just yesterday or maybe the day before. He wrote that you purchased internet.org from a previous owner. I went to the Who Is on Domain Tools, Who Is History on DomainTools.com, looked it up. I saw Michael Bauer of Denver, Colorado. You held it for a few months and then you sold it to what appears to be Daniel Thurallo of Naples, Florida, who subsequently sold it to the founder of Facebook.com, billionaire Mark Zuckerberg. Is that correct? Or is the research that I did correct on that?
Well, there's been a few different stories that have flown around. It's not entirely accurate. So we actually we sold the domain name through our brokerage to Daniel.
Okay.
For a decent amount. It was, at the time we had shopped the domain name to a awful lot of buyers. Ultimately Daniel had presented the highest offer. And so we were holding the name for some time, basically acting as escrow agent. Mm-hmm. And, ultimately Daniel made a great purchase. And,
all right. So you bought it, you held it for a few months, and then you sold it. Like, just looking at those 3 events, and you sold it for a profit, from what I understand.
Yeah, we actually brokered it. We did.
Oh, you brokered it. You didn't.
Yes,
okay, so when you say you were holding it as the escrow agent, that's why the Who Is information said your company's name.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I understand. So you didn't actually buy it. Did you talk about buying it?
I did actually. I wanted to buy internet.org, but ultimately, not everybody agreed, and we didn't buy it. But yeah, I knew that was a very special domain. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, it's internet.org. It's a very unique piece of internet real estate. It's a very old domain. It was, from the original owner. That was a very, very unique domain name. You don't see a name like that come across your desk every day.
Yeah.
And it was an ambitious. I mean, ultimately, Daniel paid a significant 5-figure sum for that domain name. Not everybody. It's easy to look back in hindsight and say, "Oh man, what a good deal he made." But he took the risk. I mean, he made the highest offer that was out there. And he was rewarded handsomely for that.
Right. And he happened to be at the right time at the right place, right?
Yeah.
It could have,
It's just a freak thing. That's like being struck by lightning.
That's a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Struck
absolutely.
by lightning. Happened to buy the right domain at the right time for probably what was the highest price. And you're no slouch when it comes to marketing domain names for sale. So I can imagine that you went to a lot of big brands and said, here's what you could do. Here's what you can own. It's been registered for a long time.
Yep.
And that was the highest price.
Major media outlets. I mean, we really talked to a lot of people on that name, and
yeah,
they just, if you don't have a vision, particularly since it's a .org, if you don't have the vision or plan of what to do with it, it's a tough purchase to swallow at that price tag. But ultimately, I think Daniel made a statement and also told me over the telephone that this was it was like collecting art for him. He just he likes to collect interesting domain names.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you clarified it. I thought you actually purchased it and then sold it, made a profit, and then the subsequent buyer sold it for like magnitudes more. And I was going to ask you what it felt like to have that happen to you.
That has happened to us multiple times.
Yeah.
But no, in this particular case, we brokered the deal.
All right.
We were just holding the domain name.
Your company, MediaOptions.com, actually, unlike a lot of other brokers who will mainly just acquire the rights to sell a domain name and then sell it for a larger amount, making a commission, you do that. You also help buyers find domain names for their fledgling companies. And you have your own portfolio of domain names that you purchase and try to resell on your own and start up companies with. Is that correct?
Yep, that's exactly right. There's kind of four parts of our business. The main business is still and always will be domain brokerage. Selling other people's domain names, premium domains. Then there's our own portfolio, owner-operated portfolio. We're always buying at the moment. We're buying quite aggressively. And generally, those purchases happen when somebody comes to us, with a fixed price, and we say, oh, well, okay, that's we'll take that. Or we buy in NameJet, we buy in Sato, we buy in all the marketplaces that everybody else is participating in.
Right.
And we also, have people that are going out and soliciting domain owners to see if they're interested in selling.
Yep.
We do not ever just kick tires. If we're interested in the name, we're gonna email you, and we're gonna make you an offer. We're not gonna, just say, hey, you want to sell this domain? How much?
Yeah. All right. So tell me about some of the domains that you've recently purchased and sold. Like, what kinds of names does Media Options buy?
So we buy, in the past, we bought a lot of exact match keyword domains, and we still do, but we're focused on bigger ones now. We don't, unless it's got like 10,000 exact match searches a month or more, it's probably not interesting.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. I turned off my mic because I need to clear my voice, but I didn't hear the number.
Yeah, unless it's got like 10,000 exact match searches a month.
Yep.
I tend not to get very interested anymore.
Okay.
But unless it's got a phenomenal CPC. I mean, if it's got 2,000 searches a month and a $40, $50 CPC,
right?
That's something else.
Yeah.
We also buy brands. At the moment, we're really focused on, trying to build up our portfolio of really strong brandable.coms.
Yeah, and I know some other domain investors that are doing the exact same thing. So what would be an example of a great brandable domain name that you're purchasing?
So probably one of the best examples, we just bought a couple of examples. We just bought oregano.com. Oregano, it's a spice. It's an interesting domain, I think, in my opinion, because oregano is probably, I believe, the only herb, or at least the only one of the top 10, 20 herbs, which is the same in pretty much every major language. It's the same in German, it's the same in Spanish, it's the same in Portuguese, English, Italian, all the same. They all say oregano.
Yeah.
Whereas basil, mint, thyme, they're all different. Every language has a different word for it. It's a nice, it's a spice. I mean, everybody, it's just a nice, it has no negative connotations. It can be used for anything.
Cool. All right. Tell me some other domain names. Let's go through a small list.
Domain that we just bought this week is iodine.com.
Iodine.
Yep.
Okay. So iodine is, it's a medicinal drug, right? Like, what do you use iodine for?
Iodine is,
it's an element.
It's an element. It's one of the, it's one of the elements in the periodic table. I think that in itself makes it pretty unique. There's only, I haven't been in chemistry in an awful long time, but there's only, I think, 100 and something elements. I don't know the exact number, but it makes it a unique, a limited, quantity, right? The things that makes, that make it limited, right? So that sort of brings us to the next category, which is, 2-letter.coms, 3-letter.coms, numeric.coms. These are all limited resources.
Right. Right.
It's only 16,000 and something 3 letters. There's only 676 2 letters. As far as numerics go, I mean, even, I look at, I saw the interview you did with Aaron, and you kind of touched on numeric domains. And, it's also a market I don't fully understand, although we're responsible for some of the largest numeric domain sales in history. But, ultimately, I understand, that let's say this, I don't understand the meanings of some of the specific numeric strings. But I do know that, it's an extremely limited resource.
Right.
You've only got, 100 2-number.coms. You've only got 1,000 3-number.coms, and you've only got, 10,000 4-number.coms. So that in itself makes it extremely rare, extremely unique. When you look at the sort of trading price of a 4-number.com, it's only, $1,000, $2,000, unless it's something really special, then, then the sky's the limit. But that seems cheap to me, So we're buying those when I see something that I think is, at or below market value, probably below market value. We'll buy it.
Right. So for your own portfolio, the owned and operated, they're owned and looking to resell, you want to buy at value prices. You want to buy like Warren Buffett. It's undervalued. If you did some work to add value to it by marketing it, by maybe building out a website that shows what the potential it can be, that you could make more money off of it.
Yep.
That's your MO. And so I got a list here, Andrew, on my screen of some other domain names, but I don't want to say them because the way I operate. What happens in private stays in private until you say something out loud. I've got oregano. I've got iodine.com. Are there any other like generic domain names? Can you throw out a couple more that?
Yeah, we recently bought blacktie.com, which is personally one of my favorite domains I've ever purchased. I just, for a long time, I've been, in the market looking for a really strong sort of luxury brand.
Yeah.
And that's a really strong luxury fashion brand. I mean, it can be used for, there's so many different purposes beyond just fashion and men's clothing.
Definitely.
So really happy with that acquisition. That was a great buy. And we've had some phenomenal offers since then.
Oh, yeah.
On that name. Yeah, we're working on a lease deal actually as we speak.
Cool.
For blacktie.com. It may or may not come to fruition, but it's interesting. What else? You made me close all my applications, so I don't have my list in front of me to look at.
Um, yeah, and I don't want to throw them out, and my texting isn't working right now when we're on video. Drew, come on.
Yeah.
What else you got, buddy?
Um,
You got some good ones, but I don't know what, I'm not sure exactly what you bought and what you brokered and.
yeah. Let's see, we bought a couple of short.orgs.
Yeah. Well, one of the .coms that you bought, which we're going to discuss later on in the show, is dnx.com. So you're buying 3-letter .coms.
So yeah, we've bought quite a few 3-letter.coms recently. Hold on, I'm just pulling up the list here.
Okay.
So, this is going back a little bit further, but we bought recently, relatively recently, in the last 6-7 months, scanner.com, sellout.com, thenet.com, which that's a phenomenal brand in my opinion. The Net.
Yep.
Pigs.com.
Kids.com?
Pigs.
Pigs.com. All right, so we have an idea of the types of domains that you're looking at. Oregano.com, iodine.com, scanner.com, sellout.com, blacktie.com, pigs.com. So it's either a single word or it's a phrase that is used in general society. Like people know what a sellout is. People know what a black tie is. And it can oftentimes have multiple different connotations and uses.
Ideally, it would have multiple connotations and uses because that widens the scope of potential buyers.
Right.
And, the more buyers you have, the higher the value is, in my opinion. So
yeah. So when you're looking at these names, is there a 1-sentence summary that you can give that says, this is what I look for in a brand domain name that I'm buying? What are the characteristics?
So ideally, I'd like to still see search volume. Obviously, when we're talking about exact match keyword domains, something like, I don't know, disability insurance, right? The factors that would be taken into consideration are specifically, CPC, search volume, competition, etc.
Yeah.
When it comes to a more brandable domain name, even a one-word generic or 2-word generic that may not be used specifically for its semantic meaning.
Right.
I'm still looking to see some search volume. I still want to see that those are, because that gives you an indication of how commonly used is the word. Even if you don't care about how many people are searching to buy oregano online, it's how often is that word used in daily language, and that's some indication of it. I use Google Trends to also get another, sort of representation of how often and what's the trend on that particular keyword. So search volume is something. I'm looking for traffic. I think that as far as I can tell, and from my experience of, buying and selling an awful lot of names, any commonly used word or expression has type in traffic. I've yet to acquire, something that I thought, oh, wow, that's a great phrase. It's commonly used, and then find out that it has zero traffic. That hasn't happened yet. Traffic is a good indication, again, of how often is that expression used and how popular is it. The more traffic, it also increases the value. What else? Like you said, particularly words or phrases that have multiple meanings, multiple purposes, things that can be repurposed for, lots of different things. Things that maybe they don't limit the usage, like, desk.com, for instance, that Salesforce acquired. That's a phenomenal brand that can be used for an accountant. It can be used for, architects. It can be used for selling school supplies. It can be used for furniture. It's a phenomenal brand with many different purposes, all of which are sort of high volume, high dollar verticals.
Yeah. All right. So So let me summarize, and then you tell me what I missed. So you want real words, like a dictionary word. You want it to have search volume and traffic, meaning that people are using it in regular life, and you'll even use Google Trends to see, how that word is used in news releases and other stories that Google monitors over time. You want it to have some sort of brand value and have multiple meanings so that people in different industries, or even in an industry but serving different customer types who have different needs, might be able to use that domain name.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if we look at one of your domain names, oregano.com, like I look at that, I'm like, I don't need oregano. I don't cook. I don't, I'm not even sure how oregano tastes.
Yeah.
Like what? So it's a single word. I get that. It probably has a decent amount of search volume, because I would think that a lot of cooks need to search for oregano, and it probably gets decent type-in traffic. Do you know how much type-in traffic it receives?
Yeah, offhand, I believe it has like 60 to 80 uniques a day.
Okay, so a good amount. But what can you, when you were thinking about buying this domain name, what thoughts went through your head about who you might be able to sell it to?
I have absolutely no clue of who we might ever sell it to. We had a company in, I believe, Abu Dhabi, and it was a headhunting company called Oregano, and Oregano Human Resources or something like that. And they contacted us, offered us like $50. I think I countered at 80 grand. Yeah, I countered at 80 grand or 85 grand. And they said, okay, fine. And then I was kind of like, ooh, maybe I sold that too cheap.
They said, okay. They offered $50 and you countered at $80,000. And they said, okay.
They accepted it. And we entered escrow. And then, I got a little ahead of myself. I started going, wow, we just really undersold that domain. So anyways, I think a week had passed. Everybody had accepted escrow, but they hadn't sent the money.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, you've got 7 days or 5 business days to, make the payment, or, we prefer to cancel the transaction. And I think that blew the sale. But I had it in my head that we undersold it. And in hindsight, so we've actually, we just recently got another mid 5-figure offer on it. And I don't know why, probably because I'm obsessed with food and I love to cook. I love that domain. And so, I don't really, it was a good sale. 80 grand would have been a great sale, great return on investment. Would have been more than happy to have completed that deal. But I also don't really regret that it fell through, because I think the name ultimately is worth more to the right buyer.
Yeah. So how much did you pay for oregano.com?
I think we paid $15,000. And I think that was we paid $16,500. That's exactly what we paid.
And a lot of domain investors would say, geez, that's a lot of money that I'm probably not going to see a return on for a few years, if I even see a return on it. Yeah, it's a great name. Don't get me wrong. And yeah, it gets type in and it doesn't have any advertisers likely on Google or Bing. So I would look at that, not that I'm a domain investor by any means, and say, that's a risky investment. But you would look at it and say,
because of our brokerage business and the number of transactions that we process, and we get a lot of acquisition business, startups and other companies coming to us to acquire domain names. And these companies are all looking for these types of domains. And, not all of them, but let's say a lot. Recently, I would say the majority of those companies are, they're looking for a sort of universal brand that doesn't pigeonhole them into any specific vertical.
Right.
Maybe their business, pivots. Maybe their business, expands into other services or products. And they're looking for a universal, generic brand that can be trademarked for sort of the non-semantic meaning. So if you're oregano.com and you're going to sell, restaurant coupons, you can get a trademark for that.
Yeah.
If you're oregano.com and you're going to be a clothing brand, you can get a trademark for that.
Right.
So for me, Domain Shane posted a good article the other day about understanding value and the importance of comps. And part of the reason why we are so aggressive in buying domain names, even if we're looking for really, rock bottom reseller pricing, in some cases, in the case of three-letter.coms, I think we probably pay more than almost anybody in the domainer market because I'm bullish on them.
Yeah.
But part of the reason why we're making all those acquisitions is really to set those comps, to really have a firm understanding and grasp of, what is the bottom line in the market for any type of, any specific type of domain, gathering all those data points, collecting all that data, using all that data to basically, really establish base values, which we can use to make smart acquisitions and which we can also use to advise our clients when they're making an acquisition or in most cases when they're trying to sell their own domain and are looking to us for advice on what is this domain worth. And we can say, well, the quick value price is this. I mean, if I'm willing to pay this for it, then, there's probably other domainers willing to pay the same or maybe even a bit more. And so I can confidently give a baseline price because, hey, you want to sell it for that? We'll buy it today.
Yeah.
If you're looking for the liquidity, let's skip the brokerage process. Yeah. We'll buy the domain.
All right. Let me ask you about another domain. So we set the bound on oregano, and I understand what you're thinking and where it can be. And the one quality about oregano that you and I have discussed is that it doesn't necessarily make you think of anything in particular. Like black tie could be events, could be a clothing company, could be a caterer, could be a lot of different things. Whereas oregano, it doesn't directly tie to a startup that's focused on social media or traffic or whatever, right? And so that's yeah, go ahead.
You've got a lot of other examples in that space too, right? You've got Basil, Basil.com. You've got Parsley.com,
right?
Which I believe Brandon Pollock is involved in,
right?
We actually brokered Parsley.com to him.
Well, there's right parsley, the herb, right, and then there's the company Parsley, which is spelled differently because it used to be parse.ly. Yeah,
exactly. But still, I mean, they, companies using these types of brands, right, is what we're talking about. So, and then you've got Mint, which obviously Mint, they have a little bit more
like making a mint, and they're a financial service. They're like a Quicken, yeah. Exactly. So there's a good example. Thank you for bringing that up because that's a generic word that actually has a couple of different meanings. Mint, the spice or whatever mint is, the taste.
Yeah, it's herb.
Herb, and then it's got mint, like I'm making a mint or something financial related, and they decided to go that route. So they've got a 4-letter generic keyword that is related to their industry of financial planning. So if you wanted
to talk about what is like the holy grail, in my opinion, of brandable domains, I mean, mint.com is as good an example as you'll get. 4 letters, which 3 or 4 letter words, in my opinion, are the absolute best brands that exist.
Yeah.
Maybe some 5-letter words. That's why I've always thought that, it's hard to say most valuable or whatever, but my favorite portfolio of all the big domain owners is Scott Day's, because Scott just owns an absolute insane list of 4-letter words, just 4-letter brands, just absolutely insane one. And 3-letter words too.
Yeah.
But mint.com is as good as it gets. I mean, for all the reasons you just stated.
Okay. So we talked about some great domains: iodine, oregano, scanner, black tie, pigs. How do you find your domain names? How do you come to acquire domain names like this? Because, I go out and I get a couple of emails in and I look at the drop list and I look at stuff that's for sale, and there's just an enormous amount of domains for sale, and you need to filter through them and find the good ones, those really, the ultra great domain names. Or I could just go to a dictionary and pull out every single word and tack on a .com and do a who is. How do you do it?
We do it through a lot of different ways. So like I said, I've got people that are, going through lists. The list that we have is a very old list from 2006. Sort of the last Overture database.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for names that have got traffic. Non-trademark terms.
Yep.
Names that have got traffic. If they're not resolving, we contact the owners. We actually have a private investigator that we hire, and we use him for our own acquisitions as well as for clients. People come to us sometimes and they're just like, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried, other brokers, I've tried this, and we just cannot get a hold of this person.
Yeah.
We want to buy this domain, we're willing to pay the price, but we just can't get a hold of somebody, and we have somebody that's pretty good at that.
And you use that investigator to find email address, telephone number, mailing address.
In some cases, it's crazy. Sometimes, they find relatives. They find, so we did in the case of acquiring dx.com, which, we sold a couple years ago.
Yeah.
We used this service, and, we found the guy's daughter in Vietnam who was studying abroad. I don't even know how this all came about, but anyway, we found her in Vietnam. She was studying abroad. She was very skeptical. And then we said, listen, we want to buy a domain from your dad. He's not using it. We want to offer him a lot of money. And so we sent her an email which she forwarded to her dad. Her dad then followed up with us, and we closed the deal.
Wow. What'd you buy DX for?
I don't think I can say still. We have an NDA. I think probably another year before I could disclose that.
Fair enough.
But it was a significant amount. It was the most that we've ever paid for a two-letter.com.
Wow. But the guy didn't know what a two-letter.com was. It wasn't resolving.
This guy.
Oh, he knew.
This guy, he is a sharp. He didn't know exactly what a two-letter's worth, but he knew the value. I mean, he knew this was a valuable domain name. He was a sharp guy. He used to have a company. He used to have multiple e-commerce companies. Starting back in the mid '90s, even early '90s, when there was only a few people selling products online.
Right.
He had justballs.com, and he was selling all types of athletic balls. Tennis balls, baseballs, golf balls, and it was a very successful business. He had something to do with private jets, and very sharp guy.
All right, so you have a list from Overture, the old Overture that was bought by Yahoo that went out of business, and they used to measure, and that's why I like Estabat.com, because if I type in a domain name, I can look at the value that was last in the Overture database that was archived about roughly how many type-ins the domain receives per day, and I've verified the numbers on a couple of interviews, and it's the same. It's about the right order of magnitude, surprisingly.
It all depends on whether the domain was developed at the time. If something has happened with the domain since then. Yeah. I mean, as a starting point, we use it as a starting point. It's a great data point to first step. Basically, the way that I use Estabat.com in general. I mean. Many people will be surprised, but I mean, it's one of the first tools I turn to just as my first look, and for a lot of that is because of the reason you just mentioned. I mean, it's the only valuation tool I know that gives you that Overture score, that last database score, and that's one of the first numbers I like to look at. Yeah. So
what other tools do you use to find great domain names? You mentioned this list that you're going through on your own. Are you getting, you have a newsletter that I receive, and it comes out with like phenomenal domains that could never afford purchasing because they're way too high.
You know what? You don't be afraid, man. Everybody sees those numbers. They get scared. Make an offer. Nobody wants to publicly offer their domain at a low price because then that becomes the ceiling, right?
Right.
So, we don't want to cap, and you don't want it publicly offered at a low price, and then you buy it, and then everybody knows that you paid a low price.
Right.
So people should never be afraid to make an offer. You see a domain. We just closed a deal on a domain from our newsletter today, actually. The guy made an offer. It was a lot less than the asking price, I can tell you that much. And we got the deal done.
Wow. So, all right. Okay. So do you use other newsletter lists also? Do you follow, the other brokers that have newsletter lists and get theirs?
I follow all the newsletter lists, and we buy domains from all the other, newsletters
Yeah.
that you've seen. We've bought lots of domains from Justin Godfrey. We've bought lots of domains from Toby Clements. I've bought domains from Domain Advisors, now Igloo.
Yep.
So
do you find you find those lists good? You have your own list. You use domain name brokers lists like yourself and others. How else do you find great domain names?
Namejet, it's gotten very competitive. So
Yeah.
I get priced out of a lot of the auctions that I would like to buy now. But we're participating in all the auctions, that are out there, even Flippa. But we also obviously have a unique channel for getting these acquisition possibilities through our newsletter. I mean, we're getting thousands of submissions sent to us, and sometimes those people are pricing the names at a price where we're willing to pay it, and we just say, okay, we'll buy the domain, and that's it. And we're always transparent about it. There's no, hey, we have a client. We don't pretend that it's a client. We don't do, if we're going to buy it, we're going to tell you, okay, we're interested. This is what we pay.
No, I watch these shows on Discovery Channel and, all these other channels about pawnbrokers and, people come in and they're like, I've got this antique gun from the 1700s and I want $10,000 for it. And the guy behind the counter is like, well, it might be worth $5,000, but I need to make money on it. It's going to sit on my shelf for a long time. I'm going to have to search the world to find a buyer who wants this version of this 17th century gun. So I'll offer you $2,000. So do you feel like you're in that sort of realm too? You need to make money on it, right? You're running a business just like everybody else. So if you think the retail value is $5,000, you need to buy it for something less than $5,000.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not, pretending that we're paying the highest price, in the world to buy somebody's domain. I mean, we're looking for value acquisitions. But the trade-off there is that, we pay instantly, same day.
Yeah.
We have a great reputation. People trust us.
Yep.
We're easy to work with, easy to deal with. We have, an account at virtually every registrar. So, it's easy transfer or push, change of account.
So what do you think is a value price? If you think the retail value of a domain name is $1,000 or $10,000, what's the value price? What's the price Warren Buffett would pay if he were a domain name investor?
It all depends upon the sort of liquidity of that name.
Yeah.
Some names are more liquid than others, and if it's a highly liquid name, then I'm willing to pay a lot closer to what the full wholesale value, or even in some cases what retail value.
Yeah. So I'd say blacktie.com, which you own, is much more liquid than oregano.com. Would you agree?
I don't know. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that.
Because people can see, I want the ritzy events where people are dressed up. I make more money if I service those. Whereas oregano, nobody's thinking I should name my company Oregano. Let me go see if it's available. I could be wrong. I've been wrong plenty of times.
You are wrong. There's people out there that want to name their company Oregano, and the one that's got a fat pocketbook will come knocking one of these days, or
nice.
the company in Abu Dhabi will come back. But for instance,
I should say, Drew, because most people will not come on and say, here's my portfolio. Mike, who is ignorant of domain names, poke holes in it, right? Because that's all of I told you the domain name that I'm bidding on right now at Namejet, because I think my son's going to think I'm totally cool, my 6-year-old son. People are going to make fun of me, and I'm not saying it. So I give you kudos for throwing out your domain names on there and let me say, who's typing in oregano.com to see it's available? Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not telling you about all the domains we're buying, but it's these are generic names. I mean, they're available, that anybody could have bought them. And, I think these were good acquisitions.
Yeah.
And,
all right. So where else do you find your domain names? Give me one or two other places you find great domain names. People are emailing you. They're emailing you a list of 1,000 domain names, and there's only one of them on there that even comes close to any of these, likely, right?
Yep.
Most of the time, there's none.
Yeah, most of the time there's none. I mean, literally 98% are not names that we would be interested in acquiring.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I mean that's more or less it. I mean
Okay.
that database that we sort of work our way through has been a treasure trove of great names that we've
Yeah.
acquired, particularly early registrations.
Right.
Um,
All right. So what other tools do you use when you're evaluating a domain name? You mentioned estibot.com, which I, go to as well. I run my numbers through the Rosener equation so that I can see what a value might be through yours if somebody were to try and buy a keyword rich domain name and get it ranked up on the top and, sort of look at it as a value instead of paying for marketing on Google. They can invest in something they own and develop it out properly. And then I use Estibot because they, include those factors and some other factors as well, like how many of the other extensions are available and provide the old Overture data. What other tools do you like to use?
I like to use domainindex.com.
What does that do for you?
They have a lot of data, more data than I even know how to use.
Yeah.
But they've got a phenomenal amount of data. Their valuation system, I haven't quite figured out yet, but it's very much different than what Estibot is doing. Domainparking.com also provides a valuation tool, which is is interesting. They give you a range, which is
sometimes a little better. If I go and list my house, the realtors aren't like giving me a fixed price; they're giving me a range. Yeah.
But they, I kind of use those tools like Zillow in the real estate market, right? To kind of just to give me a little comfort zone.
Yeah.
And then I go to I look at Google keyword tool, see if there's any search, see if there's CPC. Then I like to if I can get access to what is the real traffic stats, that'll adjust the value in my opinion. The more traffic, the better. If the name has any PPC revenue, if the name, I use compete.com, alexa.com.
If there were actually websites up and running on the domain name to get an idea of the traffic.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I like to look at the link profile. If it's got a really spammy link profile, then, I'm almost immediately not interested, even if it was a great deal.
What tool do you use to look at a link profile of a domain name?
Open Site Explorer.
And I think that's put out by Moz.com.
Yeah.
It used to be SEOmoz.com up here in Seattle.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. Cool. All right.
Yeah.
So that gives you more information about the domain name so that you can make a more educated decision about whether you want to buy it or not. So that all makes sense to me. So my question then is, I understand what kinds of names you're looking for. That makes perfect sense. I understand how you're doing your research on to find out whether it's a good name, even though it's a single keyword, whether it's a better name or not, how you think about it. Black Tie has multiple different industries like catering versus event hosting versus, different industries that might want access to it. And then my next question is, when you find a domain name that you'd like, let's say blacktie.com, let's use that as an example. How do you reach out to the current registrant of it? Do you do it or does somebody on your staff do it?
Both.
Okay.
It just depends.
Do you reach out by email or do you pick up the phone?
When possible, I prefer to pick up the phone.
And when you pick up the phone and you call up and you say, hey, is this Mike Seiger? And I say, yeah. What do you say?
I say, hi, this is Andrew Rosener. My company's MediaOptions. I'm interested in your domain name. If you're interested in selling it, I'd like to make you an offer. It all depends. And then it's salesmanship. It all depends.
So then he says, I've never really thought about it before. What are you willing to pay? Do you throw out the first number?
Yeah, generally I do. I mean, unless they come right out and say, oh yeah, I'm thinking about selling it. The price is $50,000. I have no, coming from the seafood industry, I always had a motto. If I solicit you, it's my job to tell you what I'm willing to buy it for or what I'm willing to sell it for.
Yeah.
If you solicit me, it's your job to tell me what you're willing to buy it for or sell it for. and I like that motto.
Yeah.
And I try to stick to it. So, I know there's a lot of people that say, you put out the first number in a negotiation, you've already lost. I don't necessarily, I understand the concept.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily agree. In practice, I think I've closed a lot of deals that would have otherwise never gotten done because I stepped up, and made an offer right away. And that's not just in acquiring domain names. That's, also selling names.
Yeah.
And selling names for clients and buying names for clients, where they may have been already trying to reach out to an owner and they can't get a hold of him and he doesn't respond. Well, I'm going to put it right in my subject line, XYZ, $10,000 purchase offer. And, that gets people's attention.
Yeah, definitely. So all of that research that you're doing on those domain names are going in towards you setting a price on it. And so you actually need to set two prices, or correct me if I'm wrong. I think you need to set two prices. You need to set the end user price or the retailer price, like what could you sell it for? And then you need to then determine your buying price for it. So for oregano.com, you said that you had a transaction that fell through at about 80,000. Maybe you think the price is somewhere between 50 and 100,000, even though that's an enormous range. So let's just say that it's because it's a name that we can't really track to other names like a 3-letter.com or a 2-letter.com. Let's just say that it's between 50 and 100,000. So you know that you need to buy it for less than 50 and you set a price of 16,500. Was that your opening offer to the purchase that
No,
remember?
I think I offered 8 or 10 grand.
Now do you
and I actually should have had that for 15, but I was really impatient and the guy was kind of dragging his feet and I said, listen, I'll give you, instead, we had a deal at 15. He had agreed. It was a done deal. And, but he was like, oh, I got to do this and blah, blah, blah. And it was going to take days. And I just didn't want to risk that I was going to lose the deal.
Right.
Or that he was going to change his mind. I said, listen, I'll give you 16.5, but I want the deal done now. I will send you the money immediately. I mean,
Yeah.
within seconds, the money will be on escrow.com. And, but I want the domain transferred today.
Yeah.
But I'll pay you $1,500 extra, which, that's 10%.
Yeah. And so he did it. That was enough to get him over the hump and say, okay.
That got over the hump, and we got it done in an hour.
Gotcha. How do you get 16,500 in escrow.com when a wire takes more than 24 hours to send?
Because we have a lot of transactions. Like, at any given time, we've got 10 to 20 transactions live in escrow.com.
Yeah.
And so we've got, funds available there before
Gotcha.
Instead of having them wire out money on every transaction, they do, bulk wires.
Oh, okay. Understand. All right.
Yeah.
So did you have a final price? Did you say, I need to buy this domain name for $15,000 or less, so I'm going to open up with a value of half of that, so it gives me some room for negotiation. 8,000 is enough to get somebody's attention, and then we can negotiate from there, and I'm hoping to close at about 15. Was that your thought process going into this?
Yeah, to be frank, I probably would have paid as much as $25,000 by oregano.com.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. And so if you
Hopefully the owner,
it's a done deal, right? He knows you're a broker. That's just part of, and if he would have had an offer that was higher than that, he could have taken it. So,
Absolutely.
it's just
and he
life.
had the name for a long time. And,
Yeah. Do you ever negotiate by Skype? Because you do have a lot of connections on Skype.
Yeah, as far as like sort of wholesale reseller deals go, I do a lot of business on Skype.
Yeah.
A lot of business, especially acquisitions. Like resellers looking to sell. I bought spacecakes.com today over Skype.
Spacecakes.com.
Yep.
And what's the space cake?
Space cake is a marijuana infused cupcake, brownie, any type of pastry, I think. I don't think it's limited to any specific type of pastry.
Yeah. All right.
But,
we by the time this interview by the time this interview comes out, we've got an entrepreneur live named Noel Abbott that has bought a bunch of marijuana domain names and created a marketing and branding business around the fact that recreational marijuana use in Washington state has now become legalized and will become operational by the end of this year. So big business.
Big business. Big business. And you know, anybody that hasn't acknowledged that that's big business is missing something.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we talked about some great domain names. If and how you're finding them and how you're negotiating them and how you're thinking about the process. I appreciate that. One of the domain names that you purchased was a 3-letter domain name, dnx.com. Actually, did you purchase that or did somebody else purchase that?
I actually did purchase that domain name, but I purchased it on behalf of my partner in dnx.com, Chris Crowther. And but yes, I did actually do the negotiation and the actual acquisition of the domain.
How much did you pay for dnx.com?
I prefer not to say.
Okay.
But we did not pay a reseller price. I can tell you that. We paid up for that name.
All right. And
but
so,
in my opinion, the absolute single best brand in the domain space outside of maybe domain.com or domains.com. I mean, it's, it really, especially, because of DN Journal, DN Forum, DN Wire, it's got a
brand value, brand equity, exactly, already from the beginning. So Aaron Meistet was recently on here talking about 2-letter, 3-letter, 2-number, 3-number, and setting some ranges for those because he's starting a platform, an auction over at a live auction over at ha.com. Heritage Auctions, and he said that the bottom floor for 3-letter .coms is about $4,000 to $5,000. Rock bottom minimum. Like if he bought a domain names, he knew he could liquidate it like that. And if you look at the Scrabble letter values, the higher values are harder to use. There's less companies that have a word with that name or less words that use that letter, and so X is one of those. Did you find that DNX was actually a lower price domain because it has that hard to use X character?
I mean, I don't want to give away my secrets, but I'm going to tell you something. I have invested for years in 3-letter .coms with the letter X in it, and I have done extremely well with them. I've probably sold, it's got something to do with the fact that I was really focused on buying ones that had X in it, but the majority of the 3 letters I've sold to end users contain the letter X. And for me, X is almost, top 3, top 5 letters you can have in a string because it's variable. It just has X represents so many different things. Yeah. Particularly in technology world, it literally X means everything. It means exchange. It means transfer. It means, it goes on and on and on and on.
X Factor, TV shows, all those. Yeah.
Yeah. X has been, SpaceX, right? Like, what does X mean in SpaceX, right? That's
right. So you've given away a secret, but you've already plundered the X on 2- and 3-letter domain names. So you're giving it away, but you've already had your fill of those.
I don't think there's any left at reasonable prices. So
and you mentioned earlier you bought dx.com.
Yep.
And sold it.
Yep. For a lot.
Can you say what you purchased it for?
I can't.
Was it 6 figures?
Oh yeah. It was well into the 6 figures.
And did you sell it for in the 6 figures?
We sold it for a lot of money.
All right.
And for a big store credit on Deal Extreme.
Oh, cool. All right. So one of the ways people can now sell their domain names is through a brand new auction platform that you and your partner, Chris Crowler, Crowler. Is that correct?
Nope. Crowther.
Ther. Crowler. Internet Media. You both have launched a brand new platform together called DNX.com. The acronym stands for Domain Name Exchange, as you mentioned. And from what I can tell, Internet Media, Chris's company, is located in Panama as well. Is that correct?
Yep.
Did you two meet in country?
Yep, probably a story for a different day, but that's how we met, and we met under really funny circumstances, basically competing for several local Panama domain names.
Huh. I need to get down to Panama because you got Franz in your office with you. You got Chris at Internet Media. Like, you got a powerhouse over there.
All the cool kids are here. We just Jeff Gabriel was just actually here with his wife visiting. Greg McNair is here often. Elliot Silver was just down here with his wife visiting. Panama is a happening place. It's a great spot.
All right, so DNX.com is a reverse auction platform, also called a Dutch auction. Ugh.
Exactly.
How does that work?
So it's a reverse auction. We start at the highest price. We start at the asking price, and the price drops at random intervals, random price intervals, and random time intervals until it hits either the reserve price, until somebody hits the buy it now button and just buys it at the current price, or until it hits somebody's previous bid. So kind of the way that you make a proxy bid on current name domain platforms, auction platforms, where that's the highest bid you're willing to pay, and your bid increases until the auction ends. In this sense, you make a bid at the highest price you're willing to pay, and the price drops until it hits your price, or until somebody else is willing to pay a higher price.
Okay, now wait a second. So one of the domains on there, and there's some really great domain names on there. One of them is, which, I think is a great domain name, is diagnose.com.
Yeah,
I think it fits your whole criteria that we discussed earlier. It started at, let's see here, probably like, I don't know, 70,000 or something. I've been following it.
75.
And it's currently at 46,000. And so
Wow.
who sets the first price? Who sets that initial offering price?
Like any of our brokerage deals, I mean, it's kind of a negotiation, right? So
Okay.
There's, we kind of talk about it. We're really focused on value here. So that's kind of where we're trying to differentiate. Outside of, obviously, our process is completely different, and we'll get to why that's important.
Yeah.
But we're trying to differentiate, by not having 10,000 or in the case of some of these things, 500,000 domain names.
It's way too many.
It's way too many. It takes way too much time to filter through. So we're doing that filtering for you. We're taking all the submissions and we're boiling it down, and we're only presenting you, we're trying not to have, at least for now, more than 30, 50, maximum 100, but I don't even think, we really want to have that many names yet at any given point. And you're kind of getting my seal of approval. I'm hesitant to say that because we've had some pretty low quality names on there, but that was when we were launching. So, but it's kind of like saying, one of us is saying, all right, maybe it's a stretch, but we think that this name's a good value. Mm-hmm. Maybe the asking price is high, but by the time it gets to the reserve price, or many of these names have zero reserve. We've sold a bunch of names at $1.
Wow.
Nobody's making money when a name sells for $1.
No, you're not making a commission. I assume the seller's not making any money because they're at least paying reg fees. So the only one that's winning is the buyer. So,
yep. But that's it's a new site, it's a new service, and there's some good opportunities. Buyers should definitely keep that on their radar. There's a lot of good deals to be had.
All right, so let me ask you a couple questions. So you and the seller set the asking price. So maybe that's like the retail value, right? You'll start at the retail and then it gets decremented in price randomly. That's one of the questions that I was going to ask you. Like, I can't figure out is it every 8 hours? Is it every 6 hours? What's the dollar amount that it's going down?
Yeah, that's exactly what we want. Is our whole purpose was basically value and security and trust. Mm-hmm. It's impossible to defraud our system. Okay. I mean, there's basically, you can't. I mean, there's no shill bidding because the price is dropping. There's no fake bidding. There's no,
Now, one of the other One of the other people I've interviewed, another Sherpa, has a marketplace, and I didn't see very much action on it. And I said, what's going on? He's like, there's no shill bidding on my marketplace because I require every buyer to provide a photo ID and verify their email address and like something else. I'm like, yeah, that you're making them jump through some serious hoops in order to get onto the marketplace, but you're not necessarily doing that. So how can you prevent shill bidding?
We thought about really triple checking every buyer and making sure that every person that signs up is legit.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we're doing our sellers a disservice because I know even myself, I don't want to jump through hoops to buy a domain name.
Right.
And so unless you're really, unless I know it's instant money to be made.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think that it's not as critical for us because, you can't shill bid. There is no fake bids. It doesn't make any sense. The price is dropping, not going up.
Right. Okay.
So shill bidding doesn't do anybody.
So the price is dropping. I'm watching it. I'm getting nervous. Should I pull the trigger at, for diagnose at 40,000 or should I pull the trigger at 30,000 or maybe nobody else is watching because, it's a brand new offering and maybe I'm the only person on DNX.com. So maybe I'll just wait for like 15,000. Should I wait or should I put in an offer? Because on some of the domains you have on the far right side, make offer.
So that's exactly what we want you to be asking yourself. We want to create a sense of urgency. We've got the bid meter, right? And we're actually going to be rolling out soon a new version, much more sophisticated version of that bid meter. Right now it's basically tracking how much interest is, how many people are watching this auction, how many people are bidding in the auction, how close is the bid to the reserve price or the asking price.
And when you say bidding, like diagnose.com is at 40,000. I could put a bid in at 20,000, right?
You could put a bid in at $5 if you want.
Okay, so I can put $5 and it's going to go all the way down to $5 unless somebody bids higher or somebody buys it at the current price.
Or puts a higher offer. So
right.
Like Diagnose is a great example. I mean, Diagnose, to be honest, under 50 grand, you're already talking about, you're getting into value territory. That's a medical name and medical space is blowing up.
Yep.
Health, medical, these are going to be the fastest growing verticals over the next few years. So that's a phenomenal name. It's already getting into to viable domainer buying price range.
Yeah.
And, you might say, well, I'm willing to pay 25 grand, but you should really ask yourself, is that the most you're willing to pay? So if you put in a $25,000 bid and I come in and I say, well, I'm willing to pay $25,500, you're not going to know that I bid $500 more than you, right? Mm-hmm. So it better be the most you were willing to pay, because when that price drops, if it hits $25,500, I got that name and you just lost out over $500.
Right. All right. So what about the reserve price? How do I know if diagnose.com has a reserve or doesn't have a reserve?
You don't.
Okay.
You don't. You put in a bid where you are comfortable buying that name, and it's either going to drop to a price that somebody bid or it's going to hit that reserve price. When it hits the reserve, there is a sort of last chance. I believe it's like 24 hours. It stays up there and says, listen, this is your last chance. This is the bottom line price. Buy it now. But you don't know.
So if I put in a $10,000 offer and then it comes down to, let's just say $30,000, which is the reserve, will it notify me, hey, Mike, your $10,000 offer is below the reserve?
So we launched back in June, and it was sort of a soft launch. It was a beta, very much a beta. We had still a lot of bugs to work out, and we just wanted to get it out there. We wanted to get feedback.
Right.
We wanted people to test it. And it was very successful. I think we had, I don't remember exactly how many sales, but we had some good sales. I mean, we sold a few 4-figure names, a whole bunch of 3-figure names.
Yeah.
And like I said, a few people got some just smoking deals.
I told you, I don't want to name the domain name, but when you announced that it was coming out and I looked through it, I saw what I thought was a good domain name that I thought I might be able to use in the future. And I watched it for like a good few days and it just kept going down and down. And I bought it for, 1/10 of what I think it could reseller value.
Yep. I agree. agree.
So yeah, it was, I still think that there's probably a lot of those deals to be had because DNX.com is so new and there's not a lot of people that are aware of it.
Absolutely. So over the next couple of weeks, so we kind of took the month of July off because the whole world was on vacation, including myself.
Right.
And, we were still running the site a little bit, but most of it we were testing and working out. We listened to everybody's feedback and we implemented a lot of these, we're going to be implementing a lot of new features. We're going to be fixing a lot of the bugs.
Mm-hmm.
One of you mentioned about getting an email that the price dropped. That was one of the biggest requests we had. So we're going to be implementing a newsletter that will, go out to all of our registered users every day. So if you're not registered, you should sign up,
mm-hmm.
and that'll notify you. Hey, these are the new names that are being listed, and it's not going to be 1,000 names. It's going to be 5 names, 10 names, 20 names. Hopefully every day or every 2 days. And these are pre-filtered. These are it's going to be good inventory.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get to a critical mass, but once we get there, that's going to take a little bit of time. We have no unreal expectations here, and we know it's going to be a process. In the meantime, like you said, there's going to be some great deals to be had for buyers.
All right. So I like diagnose.com. I'm going to go there on the far right hand. If I don't want to follow it every single day and watch those price drops, I can just put in the most that I'm willing to pay. It's not a submission to the registrant to say, will you sell it now? I'm presetting what my highest price I'll pay is. And if the domain name decrements down, auctions down to that price, and my price is above the reserve, then I'll get it for that price.
And I want to make it clear, nobody knows. If you put in a $10,000 bid right now on diagnose.com, nobody knows that you put in a $10,000 bid.
Huh.
They will see by the interest meter that, the interest has increased, meaning somebody's, either a whole lot of people have put it on their watch list, or somebody's made a significant bid.
Gotcha.
And, but including ourselves, we've really made this thing double blind. We don't, it really is, there's no way to defraud this system. It's nobody's going to know what your bid is. Nobody can try and snipe just above your bid because they don't know what it is.
Right. And so do you have a buy it now option as well on domain names?
Yes.
All domain names?
All domain names, yeah.
And how does that work?
Buy it now.
Oh, it's just, I put in the price right now and I click, if diagnose right now is at 46,000, I can just click the button and buy it right now.
Yep.
Before the 50 people who are waiting for it to fall to 45,000 get it.
Exactly. And that's the issue. That's why, it creates a sense of urgency. It creates a sense of, need to put in your best offer, because at any minute somebody could click to buy it now, or somebody could put in a higher bid and the price drops and bam, it's gone.
Yeah.
We're really trying to create a very efficient marketplace where, name is dropping in price until somebody just can't say no.
Yeah, and that was the case with me. I totally got sucked into it. So I'm going to go on my iPhone right now, and I'm going to go to estabot.com, which you and I both use, and I'm going to type in diagnose.com to see what a retail value for the domain name is. And let's see here. Oh, rats. My fingers were too thick and I pressed the wrong button. Hold on one second. Cut, and then I'm going to go back.
So I want to mention too, while you're doing that, that, while at the moment, we really are focused on this being a reseller marketplace, like, NameJet or Sado. We actually just hired somebody to do brokerage. So when names go live, and they're not going to be reaching out saying, hey, do you want to buy this domain name? They're going to be reaching out to companies we're looking at, they're not going to be focusing on all the names, right? I mean, they're going to be doing top names, top values on this platform, and they're going to be reaching out to end users and saying, hey, this domain name is an auction. It ends in 7 days. And this is, if you want to participate, by all means, please do.
All right. And I'm going to come back and ask you, you've got multiple different options to sell a domain name. And I'm going to come back and ask you which one to choose if I have a domain name I want to sell. But first, let me go through the example. So diagnose.com on estabot.com, it's a keyword. There's probably, we can argue back and forth whether the valuation is right or wrong. It's probably an order of magnitude correct. $57,000, that's the retail value. So if you were to think about this,
very low.
You think it's low?
I would say that's low. Yeah, I would say.
But is it a six-figure domain name, retail?
Yeah, I think a retail for sure. Retail for sure.
Okay, so but is it like a 200,000 or a 100,000 six-figure?
Yeah, I mean.
Right, so like 57,000 is pretty close to 100,000, right?
Yeah, I'd say, it's probably the 150,000 range.
Okay.
Is probably where I would.
So then if you're setting the retail value, let's just say 100,000, what would be the Warren Buffett value price on diagnose.com?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I'd be looking to probably, I would say that's a fairly liquid name. So I'm probably willing to pay a little bit closer to, if a name's illiquid, something like, spacecakes.com, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking to pay no more than 10% of what I think I could sell it for.
Okay.
If a name is a bit more liquid, like diagnose.com, I would say, I'm probably willing to pay a lot closer to 30 to 50% of what I think it could sell for. So in this case,
So you might actually pay 50,000 if you think that it could sell for 100.
By the time this airs, the auction will be over. So,
well, exactly my point, which is why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah. So me personally, I would be willing to pay 30,000, 35,000 for that name.
Yeah.
Pretty readily.
So because you're an owner in the platform, you cannot bid on Diagnose, right?
Yeah. So we're working through that at the moment. I mean, at the moment, no. The policy was no. But because we've got all these things in place that prevent me from having any advantage.
Yeah.
And actually, I want to just clarify something. I'm not technically an owner. Well, sort of. But it's more of a joint venture between MediaOptions and Internet Media.
Okay.
But anyways, that's off the point.
All right. So when this interview airs and people are like, Diagnose, that's a great domain. I'm going to see who owns it. And it shows up as Mike Seiger. See, I'm trying to figure out, like, is Drew going to outbid me on diagnose.com?
Yeah, no, I mean, at this point, not. But, MediaOptions is one of the, we're a pretty aggressive buyer. We're out there buying a lot of names.
Right.
And so I feel like, in a way, we're doing our sellers a disservice by not participating. Because even if we're not the ones that end up buying it, our participation is increasing the interest in the name. And
right. Right. You don't want to shill bid something up, but you are a buyer just like anybody else. And so you make the market just like every other buyer. So let me ask you this. When somebody has a domain name to sell, let's say that I own diagnose.com and I come to you, Drew, and I'm like, I want to sell it. I just watched this interview on Domain Sherpa. You're a broker. You can represent me for a commission. You are in joint venture with DNX.com. I could list it there with a reserve price and sell it, or I could just list it in your newsletter and see if you can sell it that way, which is pretty much the same as, I guess, your brokerage. But you may or may not list in the newsletter.
Let me clarify all three of those channels. So,
okay.
Our end user brokerage business is focused really on domains not which you think, but what I think can sell for $75,000 or more. That I look at it and I say, I'm comfortable that name sells at $75,000 or more.
Gotcha.
Okay. And then it comes down to is your price expectation in line with ours? That's where our end user brokerage business, true brokerage business is. Okay. And we are out there hustling, knocking on doors, making phone calls, connecting with real end users. And that is the core of our business. Beyond that, we've got our newsletter and the DNX JV. Mm-hmm. And ideally, so we've created a process that's now pretty much fully automated, and you submit a domain name to us. Basically, we're taking it for at least a 30-day exclusive, mm-hmm. and we're going to submit it in the newsletter, in the next available spot in the newsletter. We'll probably run it twice in the newsletter, probably once and then again at a slightly reduced price. Mm-hmm. And then if it doesn't sell or we don't get an offer, a significant offer, then after it's run probably twice, it goes on to DNX.com at the asking price, and it drops until somebody buys it or it hits the reserve price.
Okay.
So by submitting a domain name through us, through our newsletter, you've got added value. So mm-hmm. you're getting basically, multiple touch points, right. More exposure. You can also, so, for smaller names, we encourage people to just sort of submit their domains directly through DNX. But if you've got a stronger name, I think it's probably better submitting it through us. We'll put it through the newsletter a couple of times. You're going to benefit from all the marketing that we do, through all the social media marketing that we do. And then we're going to put it through DNX. We're going to manage that auction all the way start to finish. And
sounds good. So most of the domain names on DNX don't have a reserve price, so they'll go all the way down to $1.
It depends. I'm not going to say most because I don't actually know at the moment.
It depends.
It depends. A lot of them don't have a reserve. I would say most do.
All right. And so how long does a seller give you?
Know that we do not let people put names on there that have stupid reserves. We're not interested in that. It doesn't offer value to anybody.
Gotcha. Right, because you want to be the place where investors or registrants can liquidate a domain name for a fair price.
We are looking to create an efficient market. We want to create a more liquid domain market. We want to be able to say, you know what? The spot price for this domain name is whatever it sells for on DNX. That's what we want. And that's what we're working towards. And we're putting the systems in place to do it, the functionality in place to do it. We're going to be constantly improving this marketplace and appropriately marketing it. I mean, like I said before, we've only done a beta launch so far.
Right.
We're going to be rolling out version 2 in September, probably around the time that this, interview airs. And there's going to be increased functionality. There's going to be sub accounts. There's going to be, a lot of new stuff coming.
Nice. Well, I think it's a beautiful system. As I mentioned to you, I've been on it. I purchased a domain name. It all worked very well, and I can't wait to see the next version. So, if I list a domain name for sale, what kind of commission do I have to pay on it?
So the commission is 15% regardless. So it doesn't matter whether you list it directly on DNX. It doesn't matter if you submit it through our brokerage or through our newsletter. Ultimately, the commission is 15%.
Okay. And then people are going to pay DNX.com. You guys are going to take out your commission and then send the rest over via wire or PayPal or whatever.
Yeah, we process basically all transactions over $500 are all processed through escrow.com. That process is completely automated. We're fully integrated with escrow.com. And smaller transactions are creating a bit of a headache at the moment, but we're working through that and trying to figure out the best way to sort of automate the smaller transactions. But at the moment, we're processing those through PayPal.
Awesome. A couple of the domains that I saw on this morning, dietitians.com was at 15,000, newbie.com was around 101,000. Just some
phenomenal,
some fantastic domain names there. So what didn't I ask you about DNX.com that you wish I would have?
Let's see.
I think we covered all the big things, the buy it now, the reverse auction portion of it. I can put in an offer at which, as it decrements, I'll be there. What if two people put in the same offer amount? If we both put in 25,000 on dietitians.com, how does that work?
That's a great question. So each offer is timestamped, and the person with the first timestamp gets it.
Nice. Who built out the system? Was it your partner, Chris?
Yeah, so I'm involved. Basically, we've got really well-defined roles, and that's why this is, it's worked out really well so far, and I think it's going to be a great partnership. Is that Chris is a phenomenal developer. He knows his stuff. This is an extremely sophisticated system.
Yeah.
This is not something this took literally 18, almost 24 months to build.
Wow.
This was a vision that I had, and one day we got to talking, and Chris had a similar vision. And we said, well, let's, combine forces and do this. And we've been talking this through, literally for more than a year and a half. And, the development, let's say 2 years, maybe even 2.5. And let's say the development itself took 18 months.
Wow.
And we're still not done. We're still implementing fixes and still, implementing new functionality and responding to all the feedback that we received from our beta launch. I mean, there's 6 figures invested into the development of this platform, making sure that it's bulletproof and that, everything works the way it should and that everything is secure. And, bottom line that, there's not going to be any snafus. There's not going to be any shill bidding or anything that makes people doubt the worthiness of, the platform. I mean, I don't want to name names, but I mean, there's several platforms out there where I'm bidding, and recently I go, I feel like I'm bidding against myself here, and
right.
So,
well, and a lot of the cases, and I can't remember which platform it is, people will make a bid, and then I think it's on maybe NameJet. They'll make a bid. They may have purchased domain names in the past, and then they just don't pay. Like, that sucks because a lot of other people have put in bids.
That's something we're working on. I mean, that's something that everybody faces as an issue is non-paying bidders. So,
yeah.
People that become recurring bidders. I mean, obviously, we're gonna whitelist those people, but we've got some ideas of things that we're gonna do going forward. In order to really make it difficult for people to be non-paying bidders.
Yeah, great. So I've been on your website, MediaOptions.com, Drew. I've seen a lot of new blog posts. You're sharing a lot more thought leadership in the industry. Every once in a while, I'm reading an article and a little chat window will pop up from who is that's on the chat?
Any of us. So we're in the process of hiring 2 more brokers.
Yeah.
I don't want to name names yet, but we've got 2 more brokers coming on board. I myself are on there often. Tess Diaz is on there often.
Tess, I see her a lot on there. I feel like, hey, Tess, what's going on? But I never do.
Yeah. But what's important is that it's always a live person, no robots. It's
awesome. And you also mentioned that you're doing some contract automation through your website. How's that going to work?
Yep. So we're really trying to automate our whole business in any way that we can. With the exclusion of the actual end user brokerage and negotiation. So we are bringing all our contracts online. Everything will be digital signatures. Contract gets signed, domain gets automatically listed in MediaOptions.com. We've implemented a whole new domain search feature. We're going to be making that really, really sophisticated. We're going to be adding a lot of keywords and categories to every single domain in our marketplace to make search for those types of names easier. Mm-hmm. Where you can say, I'm looking for a brandable name that's 6 characters. And even if you don't have a keyword in mind, we're going to give you options. And every domain is going to have its own landing page on MediaOptions.com. We're encouraging domain owners, if your domain, unless your domain's making significant money in parking, man, or you got a live website on it, forward it directly to our sales page. We are going to be optimizing these sales pages to make sales. It's going to have our 1-800, our toll-free number, 855-DN-SALES. It's going to have our email address, contact information. We're going to be writing, 8 to 10 sentences about the domain name, about, the keywords, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to get that, page indexed in Google. We're going to make Media Options a very authoritative site in the space. That's part of the reason why, like you said, we've been making a lot more blog posts. And, we're not interested in really posting about current news. We're not trying to compete with any of the domain blogs out there. Mm-hmm. We're just trying to basically go through the questions that buyers and sellers ask us often, right, and addressing those concerns, addressing those points, trying to just give back a little bit of education. Mm-hmm. Which in turn makes our job easier. We can refer people to a specific article, let them read it. We've had a lot of people complaining that we don't allow comments, but, like I said, we're not really necessarily trying to be a blog. Right. We're just trying to sort of put some information out there for people to get informed. Because it's our corporate site, I don't necessarily think that it's the right place to have comments enabled. But all
right, Drew, here's the last question for you. Yep. What's your view? What's your view on your strategy that we've discussed today? Buying premium generic words that have multiple connotations that can serve as sort of an industry defining brand. How has that changed when the new general top level domains are going to become available starting late this year?
I don't think it's going to change. I think that the types of domains that you and I have been talking about today, really strong 1-word, 2-word domains, even .nets and .orgs that really fit the extension.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the values there are going to change. They may even increase. I think there will be an eventual flight to quality, and but the GTLDs are going to present some really interesting opportunities, and we're looking forward to sort of participating in brokering some of the premium names from some of the strings. That's looking forward. That's one of the things we want to be doing with DNX.com is running some of the premium auctions from the land rush on some of these GTLD strings through DNX.com. But I think that the GTLDs ultimately are going to just sort of expand the pool of names that fit the description that you and I talked about.
Mm-hmm.
When you start looking to the right of the dot, and you're looking at car.insurance, as a great alternative to carinsurance.com. I'm not going to say it's got the same value, because it doesn't. Just plain and simple. Maybe it's worth 5%, and maybe it's worth 10%, and maybe it's worth 50%. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the age of the .coms and the just the mind share that .com has among the general public, it isn't going anywhere, and that these GTLDs aren't going to change that. But It does expand the field, and it does present a lot of new opportunities for people that can't afford the .com to pick up a great extension, great alternative.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's going to be some really interesting sort of marketing plays and brand plays here. When you start incorporating the right of the dot into the sort of semantic meaning of the domain itself, it gets interesting. There's some really fun stuff that you can do, but it's not, each extension is only going to have a limited number of those type of names. I mean,
right.
Like
mobile.app, I think, is probably going to be one of the hot domains that becomes, and I'm sure there's a ton of other ones, but will the launch of .app and the availability of mobile.app increase the value of mobileapp.com, for example?
Yes, I believe it will, because, inherently it will leak traffic to mobileapp.com, and traffic increases value. More at the end of the day, traffic is the currency of this business. I mean, it's all about traffic. Domain names are a naming system that's not going to change. It's not going anywhere. But what keeps it relevant is traffic, and it that traffic comes because domain names are memorable. That traffic comes because domain names are great brands. That traffic comes because it's an exact match domain that helped you rank in Google, and that got you more traffic.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it might spill over and help you if mobile.app is actually developed. It will help even more.
Yeah. And so if mobile.app sells for a great price and a company builds on it, certainly that increases the value of mobileapp.com.
Sounds good. All right. This is the point where I ask people to reach out, and if they have questions, they can post their questions in the comments field below the video. You can do something as simple as saying thanks to Drew for taking a lot of time, an hour and a half out of his day, to talk about how he looks at domains, how he prices them, how he reaches out to them, and this new opportunity at DNX.com to get some fantastic domain names at value pricing, especially now when it's relaunching and there's not a ton of traffic. So I would say get over there, sign up for an account, and start following some auctions. And
don't be fooled. We're actually getting quite a bit of traffic. Yeah, there actually is quite a bit of traffic on the site.
Darn it.
We're getting a lot.
I missed the opportunity already.
Yeah, it's growing. It's growing. It's growing.
Good.
We've gotten a lot of key buyers on board, and they've sort of recognized some of the values, and so it's
nice. Hey, Drew, if somebody wants to send you an email or wants to follow up with you and say, I've got some domain names that I want to get through your newsletter and DNX, or have you broker if it's over $75,000, how can they best get in touch with you?
Yeah, Andrew at MediaOptions.com. I respond to every email I get, except for spam. And awesome. You can call us 1-855-DN-SALES. Or go to our homepage and hit us up on the live chat.
All right. And are you going to be at the traffic conference coming up in October in Florida?
I am not. There's a possibility that we may change plans last minute and go, but at the moment, we just got too much going on. I'm not going to be attending, although I'm looking forward to attending next year when they move back to Miami. And I'm hoping that there'll be another Domain Fest this year.
Yeah, maybe. All right, Andrew Rosener, CEO of MediaOptions.com and joint venture with DNX.com. Thank you for coming on the show, sharing your knowledge about pricing and finding great domain names. And thanks for once again being a domain Sherpa.
Thanks a lot, Michael.
Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.